Never joke, never joke, never joke. Oh, money, never money, never money, money, never money, money. Now know what you conniving money, money, never money, never money, money, never money, money. You can keep your conniving money when you've been a corrupt bum. In a bill, tell me money. Now because your money done, you come with conniving money. When you had your pocket full, in a bill, tell me money. Now because your money done, you hustle for tell me money. Yes, money, never money, never money, money, never money, money. Now know what you conniving money. Neighbor, neighbor, joker, neighbor, neighbor, joker, neighbor, neighbor, joker. That's all the money that me work for. A 2 pound note and a guilder piece. A 2 pound note and a guilder piece. A 2 pound note and a guilder piece. This is all the money that me work for. I said money, neighbor, money, neighbor, money, money, neighbor, money, money. Now I don't want you conniving money. Oh, Joseph.
Well, I invoke the WPA's position that we are engaging in civil disobedience and non-cooperation with the government, and on that grounds I refuse to participate in the interview. The question in struggle, is not personal. Whatever sacrifice as a political activist or a political leader you have to make for your people, you have to make it.
Guyana and Guyanese, at home and abroad. Tune in to Guyanese Morning Time, hosted by Kadaki Amsterdam, where the sun always shines. Guyanese Morning Time, the people call it Guyanese Morning Time. Rhythm, rhythm, Guyanese Morning Time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again, Guyanese Morning Time. The people call it Guyanese Morning Time. Rhythm, rhythm, Guyanese Morning Time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again. We rise up early morning watching Kams Tv, where wisdom and knowledge, yes, it is the key. Exposing corruptions over land and sea, where the wicked politicians, they try to trick me. Guyana is a land for everybody. With 6 races should live in harmony. Is one set of people getting oil money. Is one set of people doing the thievery. Guyanese Morning Time. The people calling Guyanese Morning Time. Rhythm, rhythm, Guyanese Morning Time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again, Guyanese Morning Time. The people calling Guyanese Morning Time. Rhythm, rhythm, Guyanese Morning Time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again. This is a program that you all can see, sharing your views and your integrity. Like it, comment and share it all around. Pass it to your neighbor, safe and sound. A sad situation going on in this town. The voice of the people is getting trampled down. Out of the mouths of babes and sucklings, which has ordained me to sing. I sing Guyanese Morning Time. The people calling Guyanese Morning Time. Rhythm, rhythm, Guyanese Morning Time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again, Guyanese Morning Time. The people calling Guyanese Morning Time. Rhythm, rhythm, Guyanese Morning Time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again, fooling the people. You're promoting evil. Stop lying to the people. You are a part of the cycle. Stop fooling people. You're promoting evil. Stop lying to the people. You are a part of the cycle. I say Guyanese Morning Time. The people calling Guyanese Morning Time. Rhythm, rhythm, Guyanese Morning Time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again, Guyanese Morning Time. The people calling Guyanese Morning Time. Rhythm, Guyanese morning time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again. They got Rickford, Bork and Mark Benchcop, David Hines and Kadaki Amsterdam, Sherrod Duncan, Nigel London, Normal Brown and Gavin Matthews. Big up Paslow Port People Governor, Simona Brooms, Robin Simpson, Hampton Green and Winston Jordan. And yes, we can go right on and on. Guyanese morning time, the people calling Guyanese morning time. Rhythm, Guyanese morning time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again, Guyanese morning time. The people calling Guyanese morning time. Rhythm, Guyanese morning time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again.
The relatives and friends of young Wyndham Bacchus, they deserve justice. The family, the relatives and friends of our in Boston, they deserve justice. The family, the relatives and friends of Peter Headley, they deserve justice.
And so when we say that Guyana is an apartheid state, we have the evidence to show.
Morning, are you morning? Welcome to another program of Guyanese Morning Time. It is now 7 hours 17. It's a Wednesday. Yes, it's Wednesday the 8th. What am I saying? Wednesday the 6th of September in the year 2023. 70 minutes after the 7 o'clock hour. And I want us to go right across, quite frankly, to the Twin Island media. Dr. Hines is over there this morning. He's going to spend some time discussing crime. And so I want us to join that discussion. And then, of course, we will come back to our regular programming. So let me see if I can catch up with Dr. Hines over at Twin Island Media. And we listen to that discourse.
By the way, just for clarity, it was pains getting these statistics from the police. At least for 2023, we've seen an increase over 2022, as well as matter of fact, we've seen an increase over the 2020, 2021, 2022 period. Thus far, we've recorded 90 homicides for the year. Just about, and these were for the first 2 quarters of 2023, 19 homicides, 96 bodily harm crimes, instances of larcenies are up, larcenies 230, malicious damage 157. Across many of the spectrums of crime, but if you look at major crimes, they're trending downwards compared to the last 3 years for the first quarter. For the first quarter, they've been trending down, but the numbers are still relatively high overall.
Oh boy. Is there a sense within the society in St. Kitts that the authorities have a handle or have a solution for this? Or is it just resignation that this is just the way it is? What's happening there? What's the feel you have on the ground there in St. Kitts?
That's a loaded question, Darren, because there's a sense that they know what they want, but there's also a sense that the young people are disregarding calls and plans that are being put in place by the police force. And I could give you a typical example. Just recently, we had the robberies of a supermarket franchise. They hit one around 5-something in the afternoon, and within 45 minutes, they hit another branch. Problem with that is when the entire media apparatus reported on it. The following weekend, 5 young men went and they sought to conduct the same robbery, a similar style of robbery on Nevis, on another outlet of the same supermarket. It just highlights that it's difficult to put a lid. They know what they want. They've been explaining their plans to combat the problem, but they're not getting to the grassroots issue of what is causing this uptick in criminal activities.
Dr. David Hines, similar question to you.
Yes, same thing in Guyana. They're scratching their heads. The police does not know. And in fact, I just pulled up the statistics here for Guyana. There's been an increase of 36.6% in the first half of 2023. So you're talking about 82 murders in the first half of 2023, an average of 13 persons per month. So I said 4 per week in Guyana. It's 13 per month. So it's 4 point something per week. And last year it was 60 murders for the first half of 2022. And so it's gone up by 36.6% this year. No, there are all kinds of theories that have been put forward. The increase in and the ready availability of guns in the country, that is certainly one of the big issues there. The inability of the police for want of the capacity to deal with the level of crime that's there, but also corruption within the police force, and the people feeling they can take the law into their hands because they feel that the police force and the justice system could be bribed. That's another theory that is being put forward. The third theory that is being put forward is the general breakdown of law and order in the country and the rule of law. And this is linked to the politics of the country. So there are all kinds of theories that have been put forward, but the police have not been able to put a handle on these homicides, these murders. In addition to that, there's an extremely high rate of road accidents. I mean, just this past weekend, there were 8 people killed on the roads in Guyana. And it's become almost a national emergency in the country. When you couple the death on the road, murders, and then there's been a high rate of fires in the country, is a lot of tragedy in our country. But the murders, I mean, that stands out. That stands out.
I'm curious. I want to come back to something you said in your previous response, i.e., the general breakdown of law and order, and it being linked to the political world or the political realm. Could you expand on that? What's the link between the politics in the country and, because I'm not aware of any specific political upheaval or issue, Dr. Ali seems to have the situation in hand from a political standpoint. Am I reading wrong, or there's something deeper?
Well, what I'm making reference to are accusations of impropriety on the part of government officials. Only recently, a government minister was accused of raping a 15-year-old child. And that story went on for almost a month. Eventually, he got off because the DPP refused to continue to recommend charges against him after enormous pressure on the accused to withdraw her statement and to say that she no longer wants to continue the case against the minister. She was held by the state in quote-unquote custody. And so people see instances like that as the justice system in the country serving one class of people. There are other instances of well-to-do people in the society who would commit who would be accused of committing violent offenses, assault and attempted murder and so on, and getting off. And there's a theory that people in the wider society see that, and so they feel that they can take the law into their own hands and settle disputes in the society by naked violence.
Okay. Jermaine, is that situation mirrored in St. Kitts Nevis? Is there a attitude, or at least a perspective among the populace that, hey, you know, some people get away with it, so therefore, you know, why can't I?
Yes and no. Yes, yes, in the sense that, and it's a trend that we've been seeing. Depending on which administration is in office, you'll see a spike and you'll see a lull in crime. That's across the board, and that's what we in the media realm and, you know, the political pundits would tell you, right? And if you look at the statistics for the last year and so, major crimes have been trending downwards, right? The overall criminal activities increase based on the statistics, right? So that suggests that depending on which administration is in office, you've been seeing crime spike, like for example now, right? That's what they would tell you. The issue though is people in general would not necessarily blame an administration, because you're not hearing about these white-collar crimes, right? It's only now that administration has changed, you're now hearing about these white-collar crimes when others are being done by administrations and so forth. But does it go deeper to say people are using that as an influence to criminal activities? Not necessarily. The data and the trends and some of the research, it's not necessarily showing that. Criminal activities in St. Kitts and Nevis, to an extent, is being driven by one, easy access to guns, which in and of itself continue to be the pervasive issue. And the governments seemingly have not been able to put a handle or a source in terms of where and how these guns are being brought into St. Kitts and Nevis. The second issue, I think, has to do primarily with drugs. When we look at when in the media when we in the media do our groundwork and get to the backstory or context, we see a lot of the homicides and robberies and so forth. It's being caused by, or the reason behind it is drugs, or somebody there's somebody there's that. So those in general are some of the pervasive issues. From a political perspective, we're not hearing that. What we're hearing, for example, now is people are complaining of poverty because the administration would have put a lid on some of the social programs that were in place. I mean, you tell me you're spending $250 million a year on social programs, and that's just direct social programs benefiting people, right? When the administration came into office and they tightened the screws to investigate some of it, you know, those people who were on the program, for example, the peace, quote unquote, peace program, which they rebranded to call the Elevate program, where according to government, we still don't have the full facts about that program. You're paying gunmen to keep the peace. When these social programs were tightened and investigations were being done, you realize that, hey, I'm not getting any money, so I now need to go out and look. And the easiest thing to do is, you know, criminal activities. So it's these sort of complex issues that for me are some of the underlying causes of it, and not necessarily from the political realm.
All right. Now, the question can be asked, Dr. Hines, is violence a broader part of our culture? Is it a bigger part of certain subcultures in the Caribbean? We just live in a violent society. We live in a violent world. I mean, we see violence every day. We turn on our TV and it's just violence, whether it be Ukraine, the United States, multiple mass shootings, and we can go on.
Yes, you know, there is something that we don't talk about in the Caribbean, because, of course, we don't want to appear to be a place that is out of order, because we depend a lot on tourism and so forth. The Caribbean has been a violent place. I mean, slavery was the most violent institution. And we have not sorted out ourselves in the Caribbean since slavery. We rushed from slavery into colonial rule. The violence in the society continued. And we have not, as a larger society, sat down and come to grips with that history of violence and tried to put in place particular corrective measures to deal with it. So the way in which, if you look at a place like Guyana, the way in which people solve a lot of the homicides is, we've seen it in families. I mean, I just saw this morning in the newspaper, 4 brothers attack a man and broadside him with cutlasses. And we've seen a lot of that kind of violence. We in the interior, where there is gold mining and so forth, and where there is not much police presence, where there's a lot of traffic across the border from Venezuela and Colombia. Our interior is like the Wild West, and you see an uptake in violence there. where people are simply taking the law into their own hands and feeling that violent ways of conflict resolution is the accepted way. And I think it has to do with the way in which we value lives in our region. There is not a high value that is put on the lives of especially ordinary people. And ordinary people, in a sense, enact that in their daily lives, that lives don't really matter. And I think it's the value system in our region that we have to take into consideration. Do we value lives? And if we value lives as a culture, then we will find non-violent ways of settling disputes. And I go back to the state. The state itself settle problems via violence. The police come onto the scene if there is a political demonstration, and its first resort is a resort to force, a resort to violence. And then people respond to the police in violent ways, and the violence continues to multiply. So I think at every level of the society, from the state to the people themselves, the value of life in our region is really something that we have to begin to tackle the problems from. And I think it goes back to the very violent nature of our society, beginning from the transatlantic slave trade right through slavery to the present.
Right, tell you what, it's now 7:33 in Antigua and Barbuda. This is your wake-up call presented by Twin Island Media on 94.1 FM. We will have more wake-up call after this.
Have a small business and need a cash injection? Want to start a small business, but short on startup capital? If you answered yes to any of those questions, then the Eastern Caribbean Amalgamated Bank's Kickstart loan is just what you need. With ECAB's Kickstart, micro, small, and medium businesses can borrow for startup, working capital, or expansion at a low interest rate and attractive terms through the Eastern Caribbean Partial Credit Guarantee Corporation. So don't wait any longer. Let's kickstart your business today. Call us at 480-6051 or 480-1624 or check us on Facebook, Instagram, or ecabank.com. ECAB means business. The Eastern Caribbean Amalgamated Bank. All future, all bank.
Automotive art is a place to start. Automotive art is a place to start.
Yeah, look, check. We got a wide range of products that are automotive and do-it-yourself supplies if you got a moment. Smart staff that'll always know it. Got rims and tires from trucks to high performance to off-roading. Start hair tools, batteries, oil, and car care.
Automotive art is a place to start.
Fight fraud and guard your finances with these anti-fraud protection tips from the Antigua Barbuda Montserrat Bankers Association. Protect your passwords and PINs. Ignore emails asking for personal info. Be cautious with file downloads. Copy and verify links before clicking. Avoid public Wi-Fi connections. And remember, contact your bank if something seems suspicious. This message was brought to you by the Antigua Barbuda Montserrat Bankers Association. Stay connected to your local banks for more information on fighting fraud.
It's 7:35 in Antigua and Barbuda. This is your wake-up call presented by Twin Island Media on 94.1 FM. We're continuing our discussion with Dr. David Hines from the People's Cooperative Republic of Guyana and Jermaine Abel, who's a journalist based in St. Kitts Nevis, the Federation of St. Kitts Nevis, to give it its full title and proper title. Or is it St. Christopher Nevis, Jermaine? We still say St. Christopher?
It still says in Christopher.
Okay. All right. Are there some areas in St. Kitts that are plagued with violence than others, or more violence than others? I mean, when things happen, do they tend to be certain areas as opposed to others?
There used to be that, but there's still, the police will tell you they're still targeting quote-unquote hotspot areas. But generally, the problem persists around the entire federation. I can say, for example, I know, and people, my friends in that area are going to, fret with me, but Keon, for example, used to be described as a hotspot area where the folks from the quote-unquote bad guys from the upper part could not integrate with the guys in the lower area and vice versa. McKnight was one of those areas, and even now they're flagging them, but the criminal activities are occurring right across the federation. But I think just to give a quick context, what I've found, Darren and others, is that people are not necessarily targeting law-abiding citizens. When you hear, for example, we have 19 homicides this year, which is more than the last 3 years, it's a case where I would have infringed on someone or I would have done someone something. So it's more of a retribution type issue that is occurring in St. Kitts and Nevis. And I have to give that sort of context so people can get a better understanding. So it's not a case that somebody's been specifically singled out because they didn't do something, right? It's more of me getting back at you, sort of issue that's been occurring here in St. Kitts and Nevis.
A simple matter of poverty. So some suggest, the Caribbean is not providing enough opportunity, particularly for its young persons, and they feel they want to get ahead in life. They want to drive the BMW and the Mercedes. They want to live in the house on the hill, and they're going to do whatever it takes. And so, if violence comes with it, so be it. Is it as simple as that for some? Dr. David Hines.
Well, that is a fact. But I don't think it's the only reason. I mean, poverty is, of course, at the core of a lot of our social problems in Guyana and the region. We know that for a fact. But to say that there is a causation between poverty and every act of violence is really to simplify it. Violence, poverty has to be seen in that context. But there are other factors. You take a place like Guyana or Trinidad, we are right there at the gateway to the drug problems starting in Central America and South America. So we are transshipment points. And then you come through a Guyana and a Trinidad, and then you get in to our small islands. Their islands, it's very easy to penetrate their borders because they're islands. They don't have the kind of resources to fight the transnational crime. Because we in the Caribbean are right there in the root of transnational crime. And then you take Guyana and Trinidad, a lot of money passes through those countries, legitimate money, but a lot of bad money is there in those countries. And so therefore, it's very difficult to distinguish between the formal economy and the narco economy. And the narco economy feeds on poverty. It feeds on poverty. The young people who are running drugs are often young people who are looking to make a living and are not able to make a living in the formal society. You take a place like Guyana, 50% of its people are earning $7 per day or less. You hear that? And this is in the fastest growing economy in our region, in our hemisphere, and perhaps in the world. 50% of its people. Young people then look at that and say, I really can't make a living in the formal economy. And so I go outside of the formal economy. Once you go outside there, that's the law of the jungle. That's the concrete jungle there, right? And so violence then there. No, the police force itself, no, it's recruiting its members from the very communities that are caught up in this violence. So at some point, you can't distinguish between who is the police and who are the violent, quote unquote, criminals, because they are coordination. And we have seen that in Guyana. Coordination in crime between police and the quote unquote young people who are getting into these behaviors. So the thing becomes a kind of inbreeding and renders the state institutions incapable of putting in place preventative measures and corrective measures. So it becomes a problem that is driven from outside, percolating inside of the country. The institutions of the country are not matured enough. They are corrupt to deal with it. We are really dealing with a state of emergency in our region. And given the way in which people are moving from island to island, and I'm calling places like Guyana here an island. We are not physically an island, but we are an island nation. And the way in which our people are now able to move from island to island, when Trinidad and Guyana, when there's a spike, it's easy to see how you see a similar spike in St. Lucia or St. Kitts. So it's really a wider problem that is not confined to a given country or a given region in a country, but it's really a regional problem that has to be tackled regionally.
We're gonna have to wrap this discussion up now, but I want to share with you quite a timely post. And this comes on the heels of reports of another shooting incident last night. That's in addition to all that I just chronicled in the prelude to this discussion. I think there was a shooting in Clarks Hill. I don't believe that the person has died. At least I haven't received any reports of anyone dying, but the person is in hospital and, individuals are waiting to see. But this, one of our top social media influencers posted this morning, about 57 minutes ago, guns aren't manufactured here. Guns aren't sold here, legally that is. It's illegal to import guns, yet they're here in abundance. Did the laws change? Who is bringing them in? Who is looking the other way? And I think those are some very important questions that I suspect all of us, are going to have to contend with as we seek to arrest this very significant scourge that all our societies are facing, unfortunately. All right. Dr. David Hines, Jermaine Abel, thank you so much once again for joining us this morning on Wake Up Call. Always great to have both of you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Good to be on, guys.
Yeah, man. All right, it's now 7:44. That means it's just about time for our second news top-up. We certainly hope that individual recovers and that they don't succumb to whatever injury they may have sustained. And I'm also getting video of some incident that happened at a business place not too far from, good grief, Lord of mercy. Anyway, it's now time for our second news top-up here on Twin Island Media's Wake Up Call.
Up with Kieran Murdoch. News in your interest.
7:45 a.m. in Antigua and Barbuda. This is your news top-up. My name is Kieran Murdoch. Loop News reports that in Guyana, 2 years after he was ordered to pay $20 million in a default judgment, Vice President of that country, Barra Jagbeo, has lost his latest appeal to evade paying the award to former government minister Annette Ferguson, whom he had defamed in 2019. The Court of Appeal has dismissed a notice for special leave filed by Jagbeo to challenge the full court's decision, which upheld a High Court ruling that Ferguson be awarded a default judgment. Lube also reports that Bermuda has implemented several new regulations to protect the territory's lobster population during the lobster season, which traditionally runs from September the 1st through March 31st in that country. The territory's 22 currently licensed spiny lobster fishermen will be allowed to set 8 traps per license, and there is an individual catch limit of 600 lobsters for the season. The Point Express here in Antigua and Barbuda reports that the 33-year-old Brigands man who was nursing gunshot wounds at the Celestibird Medical Center has been released. Chet Lewis was shot multiple times outside his Brigands home on August 21st. A gunman opened fire, calling him outside the residence. Daily Observer reports that the mother of the man who was shot by police recently said that the force needs better training to deal with persons suffering from mental health incidents. After hearing that her son, Roshan Shabazz, had been shot by police and taken to hospital, Josette Joseph said she experienced shock, frustration, but a sense of familiarity as she recalled her son's battle with mental issues. Her son, who is 33 years old, was shot by police officers last week during an altercation in town where he was seen carrying a knife and allegedly throwing projectiles at bystanders. She believes the police should have alternative tools to defuse situations involving individuals having mental health challenges. CMC reports that the proliferation of ghost guns in Antigua and Barbuda, these guns created using readily available 3D printing technology, presents a significant challenge for law enforcement. That's according to Deputy Commissioner of Police Everton Jeffers, who recently disclosed the discovery of at least 2 of these 9mm small firearms, saying it was deeply concerning due to their untraceable nature. Ghost guns lack serial numbers, making it nearly impossible for law enforcement to trace their origins or owners. The Daily Observer again reports that disgraced local finance watchdog Leroy King has been sanctioned formally by the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, that's the SEC, over admissions he made during a criminal trial related to the Ponzi scheme run by Alan Stanford. King, who is 76 years old, is barred from association with any broker, dealer, or investment advisor. The National Hurricane Center in the United States says that Tropical Storm Lee is rapidly intensifying and is poised to become an extremely dangerous hurricane by the weekend, with maximum sustained winds of 45 miles per hour and a north.
Morning. Welcome again. It is now 7 hours 48. 12 minutes to the 8 o'clock hour. Dr. Hines is with us. We got short time by. I guess we can start today and perhaps continue gaffing tomorrow about these issues. But welcome to the program, Dr. Hines. I saw you were over there on 94.1 FM.
Yes. Island hopping, as they say, it's the nature of the work. And, when you get an opportunity to deal with these trans-Caribbean or pan-Caribbean issues, it allows you a scope to really put our situation in Guyana in its larger context. So I welcome doing the Caribbean-wide programs and also to get a chance to talk about what's happening in Guyana to the wider Caribbean, because often they are fed out there the kind of official version of what's happening in Guyana. So when we get the opportunity to speak to a larger Caribbean audience and to put Guyana within its larger Caribbean context, I think it helps our own struggle here in Guyana.
Yes, indeed. And it's also beneficial in my mind when we get to carry those programs, because then we get to hear the perspective of others around the region, not only on what is the same situations in their territories, but also by extension you get to do a comparison of what's happening in Guyana versus those territories. So it's always good when we get to carry those discussions. I mean, there are many people who might say, why we're not with the regular programming? But things can always be regular, right? Interesting perspectives over there indeed. But crime is the big man down here. Crime is a big man and will remain a big man. Let me tell you something that I learned over the last weekend. Jam Zone weekend. I understand it is alleged that the son of the current man acting as Commissioner of Police was stopped with narcotics. Right? A motorcyclist, he was motorcycling along with somebody else, and they were stopped in narcotics. Well, let me call the thing by the right name, because I know if all of them can fall in the same bracket. Ganja, marijuana. He was caught, he had a quantity of marijuana. And instead of the police being allowed to do their work, what happens? Just like we're saying happens in official, in the official corridors of power. There are different laws to different people. I understand the commissioner called the policemen, went and abused them verbally, threatened them with transfers, among other things. How then do you deal with crime if the police force has to be partial? If it's the commissioner's son or somebody with connections to the commissioner and so on, you dare not touch them. But one of the things I heard just now on the program as interesting is guns are no longer necessarily imported into these islands. They are printed 3D, right? The 3D printing technology is used to print guns without serial numbers and so on. Years ago, we might have thought that 3D printing is some stupidness we're talking about. But here it is in our region, and to some extent wreaking havoc. I don't think the police departments and so on are really prepared for that, because many of us are lagging technologically. Good? So I just wanted to say that. But our clients, we have bigger things to talk about, man. Or, well, not bigger things. We have our own local issues that we deal with on a regular here in the country. I see Jack, you got to pay Annette $20 million. At least there's another ruling that says, why you going to pay the $20 million? You can't run from it. I guess he might be running to the CCJ to prevent paying. What do you think?
Yes, he has already indicated that they're going to the CCJ. I read that overnight in the media. So he is going to the CCJ.
I expected it. I didn't have to read it. You know, let me offer a little analysis on that. You know, in my mind, it will cost more than $20 million, right? To fight this case from the lower courts all the way to the CCJ. It will cost Jack Deere more than $20 million. My guess is. So why fight tooth and nail against this $20 million judgment when in actuality it is going to cost you more to fight it? And then if you have to pay it, it's like you're paying more than double. Why this determination not to pay?
Well, first of all, these people are rich people, so they can fight those cases. And I suppose it's difficult to distinguish whether it's state money or it's personal money that is being used to fight a case like that. The second thing is he's a political person. And so his personal problems are wrapped up with the problems of the government and the state. And so there is a really indistinguishable factor here that is not easy to distinguish between the personal and the political in this case. These people manage the state of Guyana as their personal fiefdom, their personal property. And so, therefore, what happens to them personally, if they lose a case personally, they will see it as the political party, the government, and the state losing. And so because there is that nexus between the personal, the ownership, if you will, of the government and the state, you find that these matters take on the wings that they've taken up. This is not just Jack Dio losing to Annette. This is about the PPP losing to the PNC, the PPP losing to the opposition. It's all wrapped up in the political motion of the country.
And so at no point can the PPP be seen as losing to the PNC or to...
But this is the PPP's political practice.
Quite interesting. A small man like me would just weigh the pros and cons as against 20 million plus legal fees and so on. And perhaps just go to pocket and bring that thing to an end. But it's interesting how we fight in this country. We are talking about fighting and the approach of the PPP to governance and politics in this country. Last week when we were talking, we intended to talk about, I would say, the distribution of power, the management of power in the society, the majority rule that we are faced with. We wanted to talk about the issue of the supermajority and so on. In the same light of that discourse, we are hearing, or we heard, hint throwing, let me call it that, of the PPP wanting to talk with certain people, political persons, political parties, about the possibility of power sharing. But Nigel Hughes at the Coffee 250 State of African Guyanese discourse, the 10th annual, suggested that, you know, the way to deal with this disparity, the mistreatment, the constant political fights in the management of the country's resources and so on, was to have, I think, a supermajority in Parliament, a vote that will have to include members of the opposition. Jagdeo attacked it, Anil attacked it. Where are we heading? Sarah Lynch said in the Sarah Lynch recent interview, she had a lot to say in terms of where the country is heading, what are some of the things that she believes needs to be in place, and stuff like that. What is your total view on the positions of Nigel Hughes and the response of the PPP?
Well, Brother Kadaki, if you look at the history of this program, for example, I've been coming here for the last 3 years, and I've been saying that the manner in which the PPP came to office has a logic to it. And the logic it has is a logic that leads the country into a one-party authoritarian state. Because if you bring a government to power in a disputed election and you paint one participant as thieves, the participant that you give the power will see themselves as having a total mandate. Because in effect, what happens in regime change is that the regime, the government that you marginalize from office is seen as a disgrace. And so therefore the party that is given the power may have 50.2% of the vote, but it feels that it has a 100% mandate. And I've been drumming that ear every time I come to say regime change has consequences. In effect, what I'm saying, that if you look over the last 3 years, you would see the rapid evolution of an authoritarian state. So the party that is governing the state believes that it has a legitimate hold on power. Anil Nandala, during the 2020 impasse, said this is a struggle of good over evil. So the PPP is good, the opposition is evil. And so if the PPP is good and the opposition is evil, the PPP has more than a political right to govern. It sees its right to govern as God-given right. It is good. It is good over evil. So there is a political logic. There is a logic of self-perception. And it means, therefore, that you are going to see the developments. I have been saying on this program, the PPP has monopolized every inch of political space. And sometimes I know I tire the listeners. I know sometimes I give the impression as though all is lost, because I am painting what is it that we have to wrap our minds around. So, no. Here is the PPP. The Americans that helped to put them in power. The Americans that intervene at the level of the president, at the level of the Secretary of State. This is the greatest country on earth that is intervening in the politics of a small country, not at the level of the undersecretary, at the level of the presidency and the Secretary of State. You understand what I'm saying here? And the PPP is the beneficiary of that. It's the beneficiary of that. And here is the ambassador, who was the American point person, who would have an intimate knowledge of the machinations that brought the PPP to power. Here she is saying to the PPP, look, at the end of the day, regardless of what happened, you all got to make this country work, right? And you all got to talk. In effect, what she's saying is, look, we may have helped to bring you to power and to keep the other side out of power. But that was based on making sure that our interests are taken care of. So we took care of our interests by putting you in power. Now we are saying to you, in the interest of your country, you got to talk to these people. And the PPP answers by saying, no, you now can't tell us who to talk to. You now can't tell us talk to the opposition. Remember, Mr. America, you marginalized the opposition from power. You helped to do that. You called Granger and Halapony. You put sanctions on them. How can you now tell us to talk to them? You all hear me out here this morning. This is what's going on here. Now the Americans would see regime change not as an end in itself. They see regime change as a means to an end. Regime change to them is about making sure their interests, their economic and geopolitical interests are taken care of. All right? And the PPP sees the regime change as an end in itself. That is the end of history for Guyana. That the PPP is in power, it has a right to be in power, and it's not going to talk to no opposition. Now, what happened in 2020, therefore, is the convergence of American and Western interests merging or converging with the PPP's own sense of its historical ownership of Guyana. The PPP always feels that it is the party that was ordained by God to govern Guyana. And so therefore it took the opportunity of regime change by the West, which, like I said, was a means to an end. The PPP then takes the opportunity to take advantage of that, to put itself firmly in power, and to see that as an end in itself. This is what it always should have been. We should have been in power because we are good, and the other side is evil. And so your regime change plays into our narrative of ourselves. So now that regime change has happened, you've looked after your interests. You, Mr. America, you are now saying, in pursuit of our interests going forward, we're asking the two of you all now to talk. And I am saying to you, oh no, I'm not going to talk. So here is the PPP benefiting from the American action. And then it's now telling the Americans, no, you can't tell us what to do now. Thanks for what you did for us in 2020. But now we running the show here. And so therefore you can't tell us what to do. They did the same thing in 1992. Carter came down and he helped them to get into power. And then by 10 years later, 12 years later, Carter left Guyana and said he's done with this country. Because the PPP basically, when he told the PPP, it's now time for power sharing, they tell him the same thing they're now telling Cyril Lynch. So the Americans have not learned that there is a way in which your interests, your national interests, help to create a monster in countries like Guyana. Your national interest pushes you to put the PPP in power. But you're putting a party in power that is based on the ideology of domination. And so when you are saying, no, having got into power, now it's time to cool out, and to pivot, they are not going to pivot because they believe in the ideology of domination. And so the Americans have created a problem for themselves. And I know many people out there would say, well, you know, nobody talks to the American in certain ways and so on. You all are not paying attention to history. The Americans did the same thing. The Americans put the PNC in power in 1964. And later on, when they tried to tell Burnham, behave yourself, Burnham tell them, well, you throw me out in office, look what you got to deal with. You got to deal with the communist PPP. And the Americans had to buy their time until the end of the Cold War. And so we've seen history repeating itself, where there is a clash between the Americans need to ensure its national interest is served, whether ideological, and later on, with the authoritarian instincts, need to ensure. And so, therefore, this is what we've seen playing out here. It is no accident that just as the PPP is telling the Americans where to get off, they're telling Nigel Hughes, who they see as an agent of the opposition, putting forward a reasonable proposal. He's saying the same thing the Americans are saying. Let us find an inclusive form of government. And they went off at him. Oh no, oh no, oh no. Because remember, Nigel Hughes represents evil. And we cannot cooperate with evil. And so what we are seeing here in Guyana is what I and others have been warning you all about. If you start from the premise, that there was regime change in 2020, the logic of regime change takes us where we are now. A government that sees itself as larger than the Constitution, larger than the political norms, larger than accepted norms in countries with the rule of law. They see themselves as a law unto themselves. And so therefore react in the way they react. And they would feel confident enough to say to the Americans, because to say to the Americans, no, we're not going to talk. Don't tell us. We don't want you mediate for any time. They will feel that the Americans do not have an alternative, that the Americans wouldn't turn to the opposition as an alternative to them. I'm sure they feel confident about that. So that's one. The second thing, they feel that they have enough state resources, right, to manipulate the society in a way to say to the Americans, look, we have this thing under control. Why are you panicking that the society would disintegrate if we don't talk? Look, we have not been talking for 3 years. And look what has happened. We are controlling the upper echelons of the army and the police. We are controlling the parliament. We are controlling the media. We have it under control. What are you all talking about, Mr. America? There is no crisis here. It's just a few opposition people running around and saying there is a problem, there's apartheid, and all we have to do is to charge them, pull them before the courts, put some shackles on their feet, and everything is back to normal. So that is what we are seeing, my brothers and sisters. The logic of regime change takes us here. America makes this mistake everywhere it goes. it takes care of its national interests and not taking into consideration what it could be creating in the society. And once again, it has made that mistake in Guyana. It made that mistake in other parts of the world, that it engaged in regime change. And it has made that mistake here. So, if America wants to get the PPP out of office tomorrow, it can do the PPP just as it did to the coalition. But it's not in American interest to get the PPP out of office yet. And so therefore, they're trying to then cajole the PPP. And the PPP, I think, has read the situation. And they know that America is not going to push the envelope to the point of pushing them out of office, or at least so they think. And so therefore, they're taking the stance that they are taking. We are living in interesting times.
Sometimes you speak of the U.S. continuously making this mistake wherever they go. Is it a mistake or is it a calculated risk? As they say, it's just collateral damage. Because once the U.S. interest gets served, then...
Well, yes. When I say it's a mistake, I mean from our standpoint. From countries like ours. Internally, it's a mistake the way they act. But for them, you're right. It's not a mistake. They look after their interests. But in looking after their interests, they are messing up the internal dynamics of a country. They are foisting one of the consequences of regime change is the consolidation of the authoritarian state. Because the party in power feels that it has the blessings of the greatest country in the world. It is also being driven, like I said, by its own instinct of its feeling that it must dominate the country. So when you put the two things together, that I have the blessings of the greatest country in the world, and then my domination instinct, you are bound to move to an authoritarian state. Now look at the way things are beginning to play out there at Barbies with the sugar workers. The first time in a critical mass of Indian Guyanese are taking the risk of going against at least the initial wishes of the PPP. I say initial because I think the PPP gonna patch up that story with those sugar workers very quickly, right? But the first time that a group of their own supporters decide that they're going to behave like opposition people and come onto the streets, they put the police on them. Now, the police was quite cautious with those sugar workers. They didn't tear gas them, they didn't do all the things that they would do to black people. They didn't kneel on people's back and neck and so on. But they acted against the people. So I'm saying the contradictions of the authoritarian state, and this is Indian Guyanese, I think, have to learn this lesson. The contradictions of the authoritarian state means that you build up an authoritarian state for your opponents, who you see as enemies. But that authoritarian state you're going to use against your very own, if they only show signs of opposing your right to make decisions for them and your right to govern the state with an iron fist. So, not to Nigerians, not to the Americans, and not to the sugar workers, their own supporters. Authoritarianism, dictatorship has a logic of its own, that it eventually consumes the entire society.
Yeah, many were arguing that the action on the sugar workers was only taken because Ramjatan was emerging as a leader.
But don't say only. Don't say only. To say only is to minimize it. That Ramjatan could go there among those sugar workers and give them leadership points to something in human relations, in political relations that the PPP, like any authoritarian government, don't understand. They believe people are robots, you know. You hear what they're saying? Oh, Ramjatan should be the last person to go to sugar workers. Those sugar workers know damn well that what Ramjatan and the coalition were trying to do was in their best interest. They were trying to stabilize an industry that was out of control. The sugar workers know that. They know that ultimately the right sizing of the sugar industry would be to their benefit. They know that. But for political reasons, they allow themselves to be used by the PPP as part of regime change. And now they are acting as labor always, or labor should act. And that is, they are acting within the context of the demand of labor from capital. And so therefore, in doing that, they will seek leadership from wherever it comes from, hence Ramjatan. Because they knew that Ramjatan was not their enemy in the first place. They knew that. So it's not surprising that Ramjatan would go to them and he would give leadership. It's the same thing they said about us. They said, don't worry with WPA and Kadaki, Amsterdam and David Hine. They don't represent nobody. And then when we come on programs like these and we're talking to hundreds of people and thousands of people, they then say, you know what, tell the universities to knock off Westmos and Hines. They know. They know. But they come to believe their own lies. So they have to act in that way when they see Ramjatan. Ramjatan going among those workers and give them, it doesn't surprise me. Because I knew that those workers always knew that what the previous government was attempting to do was in their ultimate best interest. And so the government is surprised that Ramjatan could do. It means they don't understand their own supporters. So they're not only acting, they are acting because it's a big deal.
You put in a 12-cent meatball, you washed on a lice. I going to give you a word of advice. Take your meat out of my rice.
You can get meat anywhere, but for the best cuts of chicken, beef, pork, mutton, and lots more, check out T&W Harris Butcher Shop, located in the East Remvelt Market Meat section. Call us on 609-2049. Ask for Rastaman. T&W Harris Butcher Shop brings you the best in fresh cut meats and lots more.
Good production.
Still I count all money, and me no job for no new money yet. Hey, when I make a dollar, you fi spin it, you fi turn it around and spin it. Millions the inna the billy, no one bag of teeth when you see me. Some fresh cash, fresh cash, fresh cash. As me Friday gone, me Friday come back. Fresh cash, fresh cash. I we say fresh cash. As me Friday gone, me Friday come. Every hustler, when I make the money up, spin it. Try my luck every minute. Island luck every minute. Them gyal I get every minute. Fi what? TMM means too much money. Them no one get a youth make so much money. Why they me fi watch them? Still have the white paper for me cash them. If your money dirty, you better go wash them. Money wanted me out and me catch them. Me I know that blue lights and me match them. Match them. Money I never stop spend. Fresh cash, fresh cash. Oh, we say fresh cash. As my Friday gone, my Friday come back. Fresh cash, fresh cash. Maybe a fresh cash. As my Friday gone, my Friday come back. The days of the week, Monday, Tuesday, Friday. Wednesday and Thursday and Saturday fly out. See a man a slap a girl with 1,000 Kyle. Me black and oily, money white as style. Lord, me a kill the place untimely. Me pocket off it fatter than a child. Bad man no love sweets, but money off it Clyde. If hustling a charge, me guilty, don't try me. Fresh cash, fresh cash. Oh, we say fresh cash. As my Friday gone, my Friday come back. Boy, fresh cash, fresh cash. Maybe a fresh cash. As my Friday gone, my Friday come back. Every hustler, when they make the money off, spin it. Try my luck every minute. Island luck every minute. Them gyal I get every minute. Fi what? TMM means too much money. Them no one get a youth make so much money. Why they me fi watch them? Still have the white paper for me cash them. If your money dirty, you better go wash them. Money wanted me out and me catch them. Me I know that blue lights and me match them. Match them. Money I never stop spend. Fresh cash, fresh cash. Oh, we say fresh cash. As my Friday gone, my Friday come back. Fresh cash, fresh cash. Maybe a fresh cash. As my Friday gone, my Friday come back. Fresh cash, fresh cash. Fresh cash, fresh cash.
Fresh cash. As me Friday gone, it come back. What does that mean to you? As me Friday gone, it come back. Fresh cash. It's a cultural thing, eh? Friday is the only payday we know. So that's our reference. That's our point of reference. As me Friday gone, it come back. That's our point of reference. Friday. Only Friday we could get paid. Isn't that so? Morning, I am morning. Welcome to another program of Guyanese Morning Time. It is now 7 hours 23 on the 7th day of September in the year 2023. Welcome to the program. Welcome. How was your yesterday? You made some money yesterday. You're sitting on fresh cash. You ain't done come the old one yet, but new one come. Is that your situation? How was your last night? You rested well? Or you had you went to bed with them people in your stomach? Them people that aggravate you or them people that you aggravated? How did you sleep last night? You slept with one eye closed and the other open, looking to see when they're coming to get you? How do you sleep at night? Morning. I hope you were able to achieve your set goals yesterday. I hope that you have new goals today, or you have goals to continue working on achieving based on those goals that you have set. You see, not all goals are achieved in the short term, because you can have short, medium, and long-term goals. Good? So, what your goal is it a short-term goal, a long-term goal, or a medium-term goal? At the end of the day, we must have goals. Because if we don't have goals, then what are we working to? We just going anywhere the wind blows. Is that what we're doing? Anywhere the wind blows? We must set achievables, things that we hope to achieve by the end of the day, the week, the hour, and so on. I find it a helpful thing. Because when I rise in the morning, I say today, listen, today I intend to do X, Y, and Z. And I'm going to, regardless of how I feel for the most part, I will give it my all to achieve what my set goal is. Sometimes it takes longer than I anticipated, but then I put in the work anyhow. Good? We have to learn to do that. We have to set goals and work continuously at them until we get to that point. We don't always get there in the short term. Sometimes we make it in the medium term and sometimes we take longer. Right? For example, home ownership. You don't always achieve that in the short term. Because many of us are working for incomes that can't even pay rent, much less buy home. Many of us are working for incomes that the bank look upon and say, well, no, you don't qualify for the smallest loan that we offer for home ownership. But does that mean that you will give up on ownership? Does that mean that you will give up and say, I can't afford, the banking won't lend me money, the bank said they can't lend me money because of what I'm working for. And I don't have cash money to build a home, so I will just give up on owning a home? Or I will set long-term goals as to how I will get there. Good? This morning's program is entitled Economic Empowerment for Independence. At least I think that is what it is. Right? Economic building blocks for independence. Yes. How do we build ourselves economically so that we can get to that place where we want to? You know, like I used to say, brick by brick by brick. How are we going to get to that place brick by brick by brick? Those are some of the things I want us to talk about this morning. But just as an aside, sometimes I like share my business with y'all because it gives me perspectives and it helps me to share my thoughts on certain things. For the last month or 2 or 3, perhaps, I have not been cutting my hair, as you notice. It has been low on my head previously. And so it's growing out now. I just spoke with my sister, my second mother. Yeah, we just had a conversation. She just see me after a couple mornings. And so her first question is, when you gonna go to the barber? When you gonna go to the barber? So I asked her, what? You didn't see hair one cut? I have my opinion on that. What do you think? Do you think I need a haircut? Those of you on this program, let's do what you call it? A poll this morning. For the next 2 minutes, do you think I need a haircut? Do you think I even need to comb my hair? What says yes? I wonder why. What do you think? I have my opinion, and I'll tell you what. Dennis Champagne says yes. Yeah, we got trouble here this morning. Good. You see, there's a thing with democracy, you know. Democracy is you can consult, you don't have to do. You know that? Democracy says you must consult with the people if you're making decisions on behalf of the people. It never says you got to do what the people see. So my first 3 answers, wow, we go in some places. 5 answers, yes. Patricia McFarlane didn't say yes. She said she thinks so. All right, you got to continue thinking so. Lynette says yes. Neil Williams says the outfit matches the hairstyle. Margaret George is saying yes, my dear friend. To each his own. Beyond Saddle, big up yourself, Saddle. To each his own. Dennis Champagne said I asked. Yes, I recognize that I asked. That's what I said. It's a democracy I'm consulting. Desiree Simmons is asking, you know, Desiree, as we like to say, Desiree is always a smart ass in the class, eh? Desiree wants to know why I'm allowing it to grow out. Claudette, of course, leaves that with me. I think it is up to you if you want to get a haircut. But all right, what we said, that poll is over now. So the majority of people believe I need to get a haircut. Usually on a questionnaire, you will ask for reasons. Why you think I need to get a haircut? Why am I growing it out? I like it. I love it. I love this look. We live in a, I don't know, we used to say vain, people vain. Perhaps we live in a vain society. I don't know if it's vanity really. But I found that a lot of people are afraid of gray. Or silver, whatever they want to call it. A lot of people are afraid of gray. By the time people see gray, they're ready to tell you, why you don't dye your hair? Why you don't cut your hair? The thing that you're looking old. I can't look what I'm not. So if I look old, right? It's an encouragement to me and others. Embrace yourself. Right? Embrace yourself. And I'm embracing my growth. I'm embracing my hair. I'm embracing my DNA. I'm embracing my ancestors. I'm embracing, you know. Jim Gilbert said, die until you die. Good? Embracing all of that. I had a uncle, I had an uncle, Dodger Sam, who had a big head of hair. Big. Really, really big. And it was all gray, you know. It was all gray. And I love Doddridge head. Every time I see Uncle Doddridge, I say, proper head here, all silver. Good. My mother, up to when she died, her hair length was perhaps about mine because she used to cut it down, boycott as they call it for girls, boycott. And she wore it gray too. There was a time when my mother used to dye her hair, but after time, I guess she gave up on that too. But I personally, I like my hair. I always admired. There's one politician I admired in this country for his hairstyle. The Silver Fox. I remember him. Silver Fox, Desmond Knight. I liked Desmond Knight. Desmond Knight walked around with a head of gray, an afro of gray. Good? So there's precedent for that if you want to look for precedent. But generally I like this. I don't even like passing a comb through it too regular. You know, most times you see I will be rubbing my head like this because I like to feel the texture of my hair. And so when it low and it balance, I really don't get to do that. So I just embracing me, man. Right? Good. So the argument this morning, well, not the argument, the discussion with my sister was, you got a problem with gray hair. Right? I hope y'all don't have a problem with gray hair. This ain't going away soon. As a youngster, I carried a head full of hair too. I had plaits. I used to wear plaits. I think they were about my shoulder length. Right? I got married wearing plaits. Good. What is the difference of silver and gray and Denise? Because I hear people tell me, the other day I talk about gray, somebody said, Mr. Said I'm hearing gray silver. I don't know what's the difference. Damn same thing for me. I don't know. Salt and pepper. Good. So that little aside apart from there. Thank you for your honest opinions, mind you. I'll consider cutting my hair at some point in time, but not anytime soon. Good. So I was talking about setting those goals. I saw somebody say, don't bite more than you can chew. Old people say, don't put your hat where your hand can't reach. Good. That's a fact. Now, when we set goals, especially financial goals, in many instances, they require capital. Where are we getting money from to achieve these goals? There are many sources of capital, you know, that a lot of people don't necessarily pay attention to. Not because you can get it from your personal income, etc. You can't have it. Keep that in mind. Many of us give up on our goals, give up on our hope, give up on our plans, because we come to a point where we realize it's hard doing it alone. But the question is, do you have to do it alone? I heard that one too, June Gilbert. I might look like Roger Lunch and never under the sun. I'm more careful with myself than that. Do you give up because you can't do it on your own? What are other sources that you can get capital from to achieve that said goal? I mentioned the banks just now. I say, well, listen, the banks, sometimes your income is so low they can't facilitate you anyway. They can't find a place to facilitate you. So your salary is so small that you can't save capital. Your salary is so small that the bank doesn't have a facility that can accommodate you. Where do you turn to next? What about your family members, your extended family? Is there anyone in your extended family or a group of extended family members that you can turn to and sell them your goal, sell them your dream, get them to buy into your goal and your dream, and say they would want to invest in that goal with you? Not necessarily for ownership, but for repayment. Or can you simply ask them for contributions, donations that you will not have to repay, so that you can achieve that goal? What about charitable organizations? There are lots of charitable organizations out there that fund your goals. But you have to first be prepared to do the work. You have to do research. Identify those organizations. See what their criteria will be. See how you match their criteria. See what you need to change in your lifestyle or your approach to life to meet the criteria, or to change your financial circumstances to attempt to meet the criteria. How about that? You see, some of us, a lot of us give up because we wake up and we say, listen, I want my 2 chicken. But when you do the investigation about the chicken, you don't have anything close to mining the chicken. Nobody is assisting you to mine the chicken, and you give up. But sometimes it's good to retreat and take a look at all points of view from every corner. When people tell you no, you should ask them why not. And you're not asking why not in a brash way. You're not asking why not because you want to be aggressive, and you don't want to give them the impression that you're aggressive. You want to know the reason so you will know where you're falling short. And so once you know your shortfall, your shortcoming, then you can take another approach. I want to share a story with y'all this morning. It's from one of the PPP surrogates. I don't know if it is all true. What am I to judge? But it has some nuggets inside. And I will use this as a basis of our discussion this morning. So this is a post by somebody named Rhonda Dixon. And it's headline, Inspiring Story. I want to share this story as an experience and hope it will help someone in the near future. My 3 elder sons, Kevon, Kevin, and Kelvin, along with Kelsey and Keon, decided that since we were in poultry business, they would invest their $40,000 each school cash grant into the business, since they have received it much earlier before school reopened. So they had in total $200,000 or of which they decided to rear a batch of 200 birds, as I will give you the breakdown. 200 baby chicks by 240 is $48,000. The 200 birds will consume 20 bags of feed at $7,200 each for 6 weeks. So that's 20 by 7,002, $144,000, which totals 192 total, leaving them with 8,000 that covers the expenses for 8 packs of chicken boosters for the baby chicks. The birds were raised for almost 7 weeks and then killed for marketing. So the 200 birds gave us a total of 1,155 pounds at a cost of $450 per pound, with a general total of $519,750 for the produce. So my children invested $200,000 and made a profit of $319,750. My children were now just not only able to buy all their school needs, but for the big boys, 1 bicycle each at a cost of $25,000, and we invested another batch of 200 chickens again. This post is not a boast or brag, but it is to highlight 2 important things. The importance of spending wisely or monitoring your spendings by investing it wisely. 2, if the government had provided boats, bicycles, buses, books, and backpacks instead, then there was no way my children could have invested and started this new journey of being young investors into the business of poultry. I want to send a very special message to Honorable Coretta MacDonald, who once said that the government giving cash grant to children is a waste of taxpayers' money. That your statement should be retracted, for it is biased and selfish, coming from you as a member of the National Assembly and a senior teacher by extent. First, I want to thank my wife, Siobhan Lorimer, for being the drive in supporting this family decision. Then on behalf of my children, I also want to thank His Excellency President Irfan Ali and Honorable Priya Manikchand, Minister of Education, for giving my children not only the help of preparing them for a next school term, but also an opportunity to be in the business sector at a tender age. Kevin Lorimer. Y'all know Kevin Lorimer. So y'all know that it's political theatrics. Right? There's no doubt there is a lot of political theatrics there. But let's talk about this. He says it's not a boast. It's not a boast. It's a form of encouragement. What are the lessons I learned from this post? First and foremost, like we usually say, every cow cries for his own calf. Kevin Lorimer is fortunate to have 5 children collecting $40,000 each, for a total of $200,000. Kevin Lorimer is married. He has a wife. I'm sure she works. Kevin Lorimer works. So let's assume that Kevin Lorimer and his wife are in a position to provide for their children adequately. Then $200,000 for them doesn't have to go directly to the pot. And so the government's cash grant of $40,000 each of 5 children is $200,000. They got capital. Capital that they can invest. Capital that, according to him, will bring more than 100% return. It would appear as though none of these chicks died, right? Good? Despite the math was done for 6 weeks. The chickens were reared for 7 weeks, but we don't see an adjustment in cost to that. But that's okay. That's okay. Those are some loopholes in the story. Like I said, I don't think it's totally true, but there are nuggets inside. So I'm saying it's a problem we have in this society. We're in the middle class. Says to us that Guyana is growing, Guyana is developing, Guyana is doing well. They're seeing it from their point of view, because they are already in a good place of access. They're already in a good place of access because they're middle class. They're already sitting on money. So they can invest because they can find capital readily to invest in oil block, in logistics for the oil industry and stuff like that. So when they speak from their point of view. The same is true of Kevin Lorimer here. He's speaking from his point of view. He got 5 children. And 40 by 5 is $200,000. He can take that $200,000 and invest it. Is that a form of misappropriation that took place there? Did misappropriation take place? In my mind, yes. Was the money given as capital to invest in chickens? Or was the money given as a cash grant for the children to get their school supplies? In some societies, that would have been a strike. Fortunately, in Guyana, it's not a strike. But like I say, I usually think outside of the box. But let's come down to a family that doesn't have 5 children. Let's come down to a family that doesn't have 5 children. They got 1 child in the family and they get $40,000. What do you suggest that $40,000 can be used for? Huh? What do you suggest that $40,000 can be used for? Is it adequate capital that will really change the fortunes of that 1 child? Let's make it a little more ridiculous. It's $40,000 to a child that lives with a single parent who's working for minimum wage. Do you see that $40,000 as capital that can be invested in a business that will make much difference in the child's life? You know, I always argue that education is a poor man's salvation. If you're poor and you want to get out of poverty, give it your best shot to get the best education you can get. Whether it's technical education or strictly academics. I like technical education because what? If you're a technician, you're an artisan, if you're a person who provides certain specialized skills, labor, for the most part there is work all year round for you. And you don't necessarily have to work with somebody as a boss. But even if you work with somebody as a boss, in your free time you still have that skill which you can sell to other people. Are you understanding that? So for me, the provision of boats, bicycle, books, bags, and so on has its place, and it has a place higher up in the ranking than for me than $40,000 per term or per year. Because unless you're collecting multiples of 40,000, it comes down to a minimal investment or minimal capital for investment in your child's well-being or education. But just a guarantee that you're going to get books, you're going to get bicycles, or what form of transportation you're going to get, whatever school support this child needs through the year. is relief enough, because you know that for the greater part all that child has to do is torn up. Many will argue it was a calculated risk that the Lorimers took. What if the chicks had died? Would we have heard the same story? So we have to understand that it's not always one or the other. It can be both. And let's talk about both. It is well and good to give children support through books, bicycles, boats, and so on. It is well and good. It aids their education. But it is also well and good for governments to give entrepreneurial grants to families. And both of them can be done. It is also well and good for governments to give monies to families that can be used as capital. And it is the very argument the WP has been making since the Buxton proposal, as we call it. Clive Thomas suggested that every household be given $1 million Guyana dollar, or 5,000 US yearly, based on oil production. The argument there has always been, when you give that $1 million to the households will decide what their priorities are. Is this a welcome injection of cash to fix our roof? It's an investment in our well-being. Is it a welcome investment in cash? It's capital, to invest in a business? Is it a welcome investment in cash for us to spend on sending our child to the university? Families will decide how best they can spend, how best they will use that $1 million. But that doesn't preclude governments continuing to do what they think is necessary to be done to assist children at school. That $1 million, like WPA suggested, the issuance of that $1 million per household could also be tied to certain achievables for families. Your children must go to school. They must have the yearly medical checkup. At least those two things. So you're looking at the health and education well-being as factors related to this $1 million. These are achievables. You must achieve these things if you're going to get the next grant of $1 million. So for Kevin Lorimer, a political masquerader of the PPP, to come and sing his praises in this way, a large extent is deceitful. Well, not deceitful. What should I say? I don't even know how to describe it. Because somebody is asking the question, or somebody is saying this, they assume he had his pens before. And yes, he had pens before, because as far as I know, or it is alleged that Kevin Lorimer was a failed poultry farmer. So he failed in his previous times of attempting to do poultry. I've read and heard a lot of stories of him owing people for feed and borrowing money for feed and so on and so forth and so forth. It's not, I ain't really here to attack Kevin, but I'm looking at the realities of what he's presenting. And so you would have already had infrastructure. Because I'll tell you, if he had to start from scratch, even with that $200,000, he didn't get enough of the block. Because infrastructure in terms of the construction of the pens, or the chicken runs we call them, Feeders and waterers, those are the utensils that you put the feed and the water in to maintain the flock over the night and so on. Those things alone will eat out $200,000 at the drop of a hat. Much less 40. Much less 40. So when we are talking whether or not we want to make political points or not, we have to be realistic in what we are really promoting. $40,000 will remain woefully inadequate to support children through school, especially that it has to use over a period of a year. But there's a point to be made from his story. If the government were to give people capital, or give people enough money from which they can accumulate capital, it is likely that they will use those capitals, or use that capital to invest and invest in things that will change their lives. And so instead of singing praises to Jagdio and Ali for $40,000 and trying to tell Coretta McDowell she's talking craziness, let Lorimer join with all of us and say to the government of Guyana, we want our $5,000 US a year per household. We want entrepreneurial grants. Do you know that through the SLED program, the coalition had a program named SLED, Sustainable Livelihood Entrepreneurial Development Program, SLED, SLED. There were entrepreneurial grants. You only had to sit, prepare your business plan, justify, well, every business plan calls for justification, etc. Then there was a small business bureau where you go and you get training even if you don't have training in managing businesses and so on. What is the current status of the SLED program? What is the current status of the SLED program? Can people go to the Small Business Bureau? Can people go, I think at the time when SLED was being looked after, it fell under Ali eventually. She was Ministry of Social Services, I think. Can people go to Ministry of Social Services with a business proposal and get a grant to fund it? Or they gotta rely on $40,000 because we gave school cash grant to accumulate, to invest in business when the money was not intended for that in the first place. I love the ideas proposed, that children can be encouraged to be entrepreneurs while they're even young, while they're still at school and so on. It's a good start. But I would want to see the government make provisions for that. And so nobody has to misappropriate the school grant. Encouraging our children to do business from a young age is wonderful. It teaches them responsibility. It teaches them how to manage money. I always tell you I did that with my children, especially my son. Was he alone, so I used to get involved in all of my business. Now I encourage them to do business and get into business. It's a good thing. Because with the right encouragement, like I said, we're talking economic empowerment for independence. Independence of the state, independence of your parents, independence of relatives and friends. You must be able to stand on your own backside according to old people. Stand on your own feet, sit on your own backside. Each canoe got to sit on your own bottom. But while we say it, we have to prepare them for it. How do we do that? A child leaves school at around 16, 17, that's secondary school. Do we wait until that time to start to teach them financial literacy? To teach them business? No. We have to teach them young. And so when your child gets out of school at 16, 17, you give them, let's say, 4 years to get their first degree. At 21, assuming you sponsor that degree, I would encourage every parent to sponsor the children first degree. After that, the onus is on them. Go work and make money. You have a family to provide for eventually. And when they get into the field of work with that first degree, I'm encouraging you as parents, don't kick them out. You're working now by going to rent your own house. Even if they're proposing it to you, sit and reason with them. This is my encouragement. Give yourself 5 years with your parents. And while you're earning for that 5 years, accumulate capital. How do you do that? You're living at mom and pa, you ain't got to pay no rent. Save a portion of that rent money on the bank every month. And so in 5 years, you would have capital in the bank that you can approach the bank with and say, well, listen, over 5 years, I accumulated $1 million. I'm earning more on my job now, and so I want to build a home, and I'm approaching you for a mortgage. Your $1 million forms capital for $10 million from the bank. Are you aware of that? Mortgage, nowadays, the minimal contribution is 10%. And so if you have $1 million in the bank, with other things in place like a fixed, a permanent job for the last 3 to 5 years, an income that can pay your monthly mortgage, I think they look for about 48% of that income, right? You can approach a bank and get a mortgage with your $1 million. You can get a $10 million mortgage. And if I'm counting, or the way I'm counting, by age 22, you or your child should be able to get a $10 million mortgage and hence get a $10 million home. And you have up to about 30 years to pay it back. That's dependent on you. How long will you take? How long do you think you need to achieve the repayment? I think the bank can give you a maximum of 30 years. It is usually tied to your retirement age. What age you get the loan at, as against what's the retirement age in the country. So if you get a loan at 22, the possibility is you will get 30 years to repay it. But you have to have a goal. Parents have to help children to set goals. And so I'm encouraging you, that's what we have to do. If we want our children, our next generation to be independent of ourselves and governments, then we have to start teaching them these things and helping them to set those goals. And chaperoning them, if you want to call it that. There's nothing wrong with you asking your child who's employed living at you, why will you just do with your money? Or girl, will you just do with your money? Of course, it's great if you had that conversation before. Well, listen, I know you will be working. These are some suggestions as to how you should manage your money. But you can't only do that and turn a blind eye. Every now and again, you must mind your business. If you were to get sick now, do you have money in the bank that can take you to the doctor and pay your bills? You ask them that. Because you're an adult now, you're working, you're earning. If I should find myself in some financial difficulty, do you think you'll be able to help me out? You make them think about the management of money. And so you encourage them along. So at 22, 23, some people believe that at 22, 23, it's too young for people to have mortgage and so on. That's the age you have to do it. There's certain things you do while you are young. Long ago, our parents used to wait for gratuity. So they live in a rent house or they live with mom and pa until they retire and get gratuity, and then they go and build a home. Just like their retirement home. And then the size of the home is dependent on their gratuity size. But if you approach this thing as a young person, then you set your goal, you work towards it, and you know that you get 20, 30, 15, 20 years to face the financial cost of that goal. But I use home ownership as an example there. But what if the individual has no interest in home ownership because is he or she alone and they don't recognize that mommy and daddy property is me own anyhow? What are their other goals? Business is a great liberator. So I want to invest in business. I want to invest in business. The same way, the same discipline, you accumulate something on the bank, you can approach the bank and say, well, listen, I would like to have a financial facility because these are my business plans. The requirements might be more stringent. But unless we make plans with our children, unless we point them in a certain direction, unless we ourselves get pointed in certain directions, we're going to remain basically all the time saying, this is not achievable, we can't do this, we can't do that. I said earlier in the week, I think, that it is my opinion that in the reparation discussion, we have to start thinking about using reparation money in whatever form it comes as a revolving fund, or some portion of it as a revolving fund for people who want to get into economic activities, people who want to get into businesses. Because there's so many ideas out there that people can't find funding for, especially black people can't find funding for. Because the state institutions are not providing that support. State actors are not providing that support. The African Guyanese community perhaps doesn't have the wherewithal to provide that support. And so if you're going to be getting money, reparation money, it's my humble argument that some of it should be set aside for that kind of support. Let us start analyzing these things. What are our sources of capital? How can we accumulate capital? What systems are in place that we can take advantage of? In order to elevate ourselves economically. I spoke yesterday about, or the day before, about political parties having to depend on business people for their survival. Do you think we need a new political model? I think we need a new political model. I think we need a new model of a political organization. Perhaps we already have it. Because there's nobody to convince me that the PPP doesn't have its hands in all kinds of businesses around this country. GPC, stock feeds, Sanata, a whole host of state entities were sold under the PPP to good friends of the PPP. Are you saying that the PPP doesn't have a stake in those businesses that is sold to the good friends? I believe they have a stake. And so I personally think that it stole state assets to ensure their financial viability. I'm not saying political parties should go around stealing state assets to ensure their financial viability. But I'm saying political parties must have an investment arm. They must have a group of trusted lieutenants, if you call them that, to invest in and operate business on their behalf, so that the profits from those businesses can fund the operations of those political parties. I remember in the days of Forbes Burnham, I'm not saying these businesses were connected to the PNC. If they were and people know, then you can share that. But you had so many micro enterprises in this country operated by PNC women. I always remember the WRSM. Right? WRSM had outlets around this country, as far as I remember, where you used to go and buy stuff. Was it a financial arm of the PNC, or was it a business arm? I don't know, I'm asking. But does the PNC now have a business arm? WPA doesn't have any that I'm aware of, because I know the question can come. If WPA got. People like tell me discuss WPA, left PNC alone. Right? As far as I'm aware, WPA doesn't have any business arm. And so just as how I'm saying, I believe the time is now for a new political model where political parties have an investment arm. I'm saying the same thing for WPA because it's a political party. It's modern warfare, it's a modern time. You can't continue to rely on the goodwill of citizens, because citizens themselves are catching hell to survive. And so if you're reliant on citizens to survive, and they can't survive, then you're on dead too. And so our political leaders need to start to look at new ways of financing politics. Just as we have to consider as parents and guardians and so on, new ways of channeling our children, our wards, in a direction that will ensure the economic empowerment, so that they can have some amount of the independence. Right? Those are some of the things I said I wanted to talk about this morning. It's not always the hard and fast politics. Because politics is economics, and unless we can recognize that, we are going to continue to struggle for survival. It's 8 hours 15. The lines are opened. 6225933. The United States, she did a stint of national service at the tie-dye factory in the sales department of WRSM. Where have these businesses gone? Have we lost our way? Good. So we were talking about earlier I mentioned sources of finance, capital. Don't forget that the good boxand, some people call it susu, some people call it all kind of thing, but at the end of the day we call them boxand. You can throw a box, a daily box, a weekly box, a monthly box, and use that to accumulate capital. In some instances of small projects, and in some instances to larger projects. It depends on how much people are willing to invest on a daily basis in a box land. Call A Live, good morning.
Kadaki?
Yes, call A Live.
Good morning. Good morning, Guyanese. Listen, I am listening to you about getting the support from the citizens, right? From Guyanese, the politicians, the opposition. I told you before, Guyanese before, let me put it to you this way. Donald Trump is a billionaire. You know where Donald Trump gets most of his money for his political endeavors? He gets it from the people. Now, I'm not saying Guyanese in Guyana could support the opposition completely. But what about the diaspora? The Guyanese abroad. We're here. You guys, look at what you got. Look at don't just look in Guyana. Look worldwide at what you got. You got Guyanese overseas that is willing to contribute. So I will continue to say the opposition need to get the money from the people. We got Guyanese overseas with businesses that support the opposition. All right? You guys know who I am already. I'm John Thompson. And I supported endeavors in Guyana, and I got no benefits. But what I'm saying, what I'm trying to say, don't discard what you can get from the people that support you. Think a little bigger. You got people overseas that is there for you. I'll leave it right there. And like I said, Donald Trump, a billionaire, he don't go into his own pockets. He don't go into his bank account. He go to the people. He is now on some serious charges. And you know how he's making money now? By the T-shirt with his face, right? His mugshot. He's making money on that, not from his bank accounts. So, food for thought. Keep on pushing for contributions from Guyanese that support the cause. Love you guys. Later.
Thank you for your call. Sometimes I get the impression we're cross messaging. I'm not sure if I'm right there. But I don't know that I'm saying anything different. I didn't say don't ask for contributions. I will never say don't ask for contributions. We need contributions. As a matter of fact, I said one of the ways of accumulating capital is through contributions. Individually ask your family and friends whether to loan with you, whether to invest in you, whether to give you a contribution towards the achievement of your goal. By extension, the same goes to political parties. There's some people who would rather give a political party a big donation once that they will invest in business so that it can generate money, as against every morning having to give that same political party, every time it comes around to elections, they gotta find money to give them. Call A Live, good morning.
Yes, good morning. Good morning to you and all my black brothers and sisters in Guyana. This is Flash Garden. Yes, you're right. You is saying nothing different. But that guy Thomas, who have been here, he don't like ordinary period. We talking that? I don't know what you're talking about. Anyway, let me move on. I love the topic this morning that you're talking about capital. The first thing, what my grandmother teach me, always take out a bank book. She said, when you start to work, my grandson, take out a bank book. You don't have to get $1 million to take out a bank book. $1. But you have to make sacrifice and maintain it every pay period. And couple years or months, you could check it and see what you communicate, that you could start a little business or you buy whatever you need, not what you want. And I grew up with that mentality that today that all my ex-ladies, when we met, I always ask them first, do you have a bank book? Some say yes, some say no. I say, look, take out a bank book. Because whenever you and Flash separate, you must have something to show from that relationship. And it's time for we, black people, and it's always said on your program, we black people have to start, save more, spend less, and invest. It's part to take us out of poverty. You could have a $500,000 bed. I have a $5,000 bed. It's not all about the money. It's all about rest. The same $500 bed and the $5,000 bed will still give you rest. All you need to rest. And this is our problem. We overspend. We make other nations rich and don't make ourselves rich. If we work for $5,000 a day, we don't spend already $4,000. If we work for $50,000 a week, we don't spend $25,000 out of it by sporting, and black man in Guyanese love to step on scene. So we just put ourselves in poverty and keep ourselves in poverty. And you use a good word. Because we love to hang our hat where we hand can reach it. When I be on my page, when the Indian girl come and tell me, oh, Flash Garden, don't remember when I a black man draw pay, I spend out all weekend and come and have a store for credit food. I would always remember that word. So it is time for black people, young people, and parents and grandparents, teach our children constant banging, break down door. Let them know fancy clothes is not all now. When I came to America, my best friend gave me advice. He said, Flash, don't worry with all the fancy clothes and all the party. Set your priority first. He said, fancy clothes always will be there. Sport and drinking beer will always be there. And I listen to him and that's always pass the word. We black people have to set our priority first. Thank you for the time.
Thank you for your call. You see, Flash mentioned that bank book story there that his grandmother told him. It's a belief of mine. I always say to people, get a bank account and pass all your money through it. Literally all. If you can pass all of your money through your bank account, do that. Some people ask, but why you want to pass all the money through the bank account and we're going to live on so? If you pass your money through the bank account, the bank becomes your accountant. The bank becomes your accountant. The bank recognizes you are earning money. The bank also recognizes how you're spending money. And so if you earn $1,000 today and you put it in the bank and you have to go and withdraw it tomorrow, it's not a problem. There's no shame in that. But the flip side of that is, it's highly likely that if you put in $1,000, you're not going to withdraw all. You might go $9.99. You must leave something residual behind. It's likely that you will leave something residual. And that residual will always keep growing. That's the flip side. But the other side is really and truly the bank sees how you earn. And so when you approach them for a facility, they already have that information in front there. I remember, I'll tell you, because I always use my personal experiences to teach. That was my attitude. Because I'm always in small business and so on. So every time at the end of business day, I collect my money, I go on and I put it on the bank through the ATM. Even if I gotta go and withdraw it next morning. So the bank keeps track of my earning. This I'm showing constantly that every day basically I earn anything, or every other day I put in money on the bank. And so when I needed a facility for the bank from the bank, and I went and they asked me for cash flow statement and financial statement and so on and thing. Call Holy Line, please.
Hello, good morning.
Holy Line, please. And I sat down and I did up my own financial statement and so on and so forth. And when I took it in the office and looked at it and compared it to their records, or words to me was, Mr. Amsterdam, most of your money comes through the bank. That's a good thing. Because the bank knows that your money going to them anyhow, they're going to get paid. So encourage your children to do that. The other thing I like to encourage people, as soon as they give birth to a child, their facilities at the banks now they call Early Savers Club. Start an Early Savers Club for the child, or your godchild, or your stepchild, or whichever child. Start an Early Savers account. Even if you put $1 a month, by the time they get to 18, they're going to get many dollars there. Caller, thank you for holding. You have something blowing in the phone.
Yeah, good morning, Brother Kedaki. Let me say, I'm enjoying the program, the analytical view of our economic situation amongst our people. I must say that, I enjoyed the beginning of the program in which you played a segment of Dr. Hines' analytical view of the 2020 regional and general elections, the role the Americans play. And I think you should replay that. Or I don't know if there's some way that you can have it put on a flash drive or something and make it available. It's very, very edifying. I find it very clear. He spoke very clear to all the issues that surround the 2020 regional and general elections. Also, last night, Dr. Hines had Dr. Eric Phillips talking about reparation, and I don't know if other viewers were looking at that program. It was so clear and analytical. It was so nice. I enjoyed it so much, and I got up this morning and I waited for Guyanese morning time, and I'm there and I'm listening and say, wow, Kams TV is really doing a good job. And I want to call on all the viewers of this program that, Kidaki is not going to ask you for anything. I know how he says. I mean, he's not a person that will ask you for something. But I'm calling on all the viewers in Guyana and in the United States, support him, even if it's a $5, $10, $100,000, 50,000 US, whatever you can afford, just pour it into Kams TV and Guyanese Morning Time, because he's doing a splendid job, and I know he normally be up and about doing his own thing to make his own income, and it's a terrible sacrifices he's making for our people. And that's basically it, Brother Kedaki, and I'm always 100% ready to support you any way you call on me too. And you have a very nice day.
Thank you, caller. John Thompson, let me say that I'm seeing your calls, but I'm refusing them because I ain't in the mood for tit for tat this morning. I don't allow it anyhow.
So here, I'm traveling in you,
right? So if you're calling to respond to Flash Gordon, just know I ain't taking your call. Right? If you want to say something, you can message me. I will read it and determine its merit. Right? We don't be here to fight one another. I keep saying that. We are here to share with each other. The lines remain open. It's 8:30 now, and we are talking about how do we empower ourselves economically. Not only as individuals, but as organizations, as institutions that want to represent people and so on. Right? How do we do that? How do we achieve those goals that might look far-fetched? What are some of the baby steps we need to take to get there? I know there are families where people get up and they get out. There are families where people get up and they get out. There are some families where family members strike it rich with the support of their siblings and so on. But once they strike it rich, they forget they got siblings. It's now their money. Right? How does that help our cause? John Thompson is persistent, like you're listening to the program, you're only calling. Right? And when certain things like those happen, in that a family member might help you by investing with you and getting for you to get to the top there, and you turn your back on them, then it creates this distrust. It creates distrust in the family, in the clan, in the race. And so everybody now has to suffer. Because not me, I done with family. Someone y'all inbox John for me now. Tell you I ain't taking the call. Let him send me a message. Right? So, I usually say that I'm the kind of doctor that takes his own medicine. I don't just give medicine, I just take it. And so when I tell you that you should try this and you should try that and you should try the other, I do too. I do too. John, if you call back this number, I'm going to block you. I do too. So when I tell people invest in small business, I've been there, I've done that. I'm still doing it. And you see this chicken story there? I made a vow. There are two things I will never invest in me as an individual. It's chicken and pigs. I've done business with both of them and I've seen people do business with both of them. What people say, some things could build you and they could break you. Chicken is one of them. You can have a good run with chicken this 6 weeks. And the next 6 weeks, some disease or something comes and wipe out everything. Or even if it's not wiped out by disease, the market conditions change. And you can't find buyers for your chicken. And so you either left to feed them for an extended period of time, or you have to slaughter and freeze them, or you have to sell them below market price. So in any way, they put you through some tremendous stress and losses. And this is not to daunt anybody's spirit. Everybody got different luck. But when I am looking at investment, I always do the pros and cons. Right? The pros is, if you're rearing poultry, 6 weeks you could get to market. So within 6 weeks you could have a turnover of capital. That's a good short-term investment. But the con is that in that same 6 weeks you can go belly up. That's the reality. Chicken, right? Swine. I usually see swine as a box hand. I don't know if that has changed over the years. But when we were doing swine, I saw it as a box hand. If you keep careful notes of your expenses and so on, you will very well come to realize, at least I'm saying that was my experience, because I used to keep notes. When you market your swine, you would, for most cases, get back your capital, or a little bit over your capital. That was then. I don't know about now, because now I understand that they are more efficient animals. Like the Topics 40 and so on coming out of Suriname and thing. They're more efficient animals in terms of conversion of feed to meat and the time to get to market and so on. But I'm saying that to say, whatever you decide that you will get into, do your research, ensure you get all the background information before you proceed. What I know John Thompson is listening to this program. What can't he understand with me saying I will not take the call? Message me, John. I will read the message. Don't call the phone. Because unless I'm convinced that this discussion is going to be not one that is tit for tat, flash said and I said this, and I don't have the time for that. That's not what the program is about. You had your call. You made your call. Send me a message now. And yes, I do get aggravated at times, especially when I'm dealing with adults who behave like children. Yes, whatever it is you want to invest in. Y'all give me a minute, let's block this one. Whatever it is you want to invest in, take the time, do the research, and so you don't have to suffer unintended consequences. That's my encouragement to you. It's 22 minutes to the 8 o'clock hour. Do you have any nuggets you want to share, those of you who have been in business? And those of you who believe that business is a way out of the morass that we're in? I welcome you to share.
Good production.
Still I count all money, and me no job for no new money yet. Hey, when you make a dollar, you fi spin it. You fi turn it around and spin it. Millions the inna the billy. No one bag of teeth when you see me. Soon, fresh cash, fresh cash, fresh cash. As me Friday gone, me Friday come back. Fresh cash, fresh cash. I we say fresh cash. As me Friday gone, me Friday come. Every hustler, when you make the money up, spin it. Time my luck every minute. Island luck every minute.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Amsterdam, and thanks for taking my call. I tune in late, but I know you hear you talking about business, and I would encourage persons to start a little something. Just search your soul and see what you're good at. It might be baking black cake. It might be making the best mobby. It might be doing cheesecake, because I could share a little experience where, nobody was providing a job for me, so I had to provide a job for myself. So I get into this cheesecake making, and it's not, you wouldn't get rich. It's a little business, so it has its ups and downs, but once you stick with it, it will bring in something. And I can remember the days when the village around the country were very self-sufficient. You could get a butcher shop in the village, seamstress, people who make cake, icing cake, everything. I mean, going to town was just a once on a blue moon thing. Sometimes some people would be there all year, and just Christmas time, then they're gonna make a journey to Georgetown. So I think the little business in the village, and if you want to branch into town, that would be a good thing, because you know what? Profits are always better than earning a salary. So, just think about it. It's a good idea. And I would like to encourage persons to please tune in to Dr. Hines. Last night program was so mind-blowing. I mean, it's like the knowledge, it was there, but it hit real hard with all of these things that we did as a people that people don't talk about. So I think it's only when you know where you come from, then you will be able to chart a course in life, because sometimes the little lessons that our ancestors would have lived, or sometimes when you're down and out, you would often, at least I would often tell myself, well, if they could do it, I can do it too. So it would motivate us. It would motivate us on days when we're down and out. So thank you for this program. Keep on doing what you're doing. And God bless you as always, and have a wonderful Thursday. Bye.
Thank you for your call. Yeah, the ancestors saw stock, for example, as a backup, right? It was a good backup. When you're in trouble, anything catch you off guard, you catch a pig and you sell it. Call it live. Good morning.
Hi, good morning, Kadaki. I just want to say that Flash need to listen to certain things, and one of the hallmarks about politicking is that you need certain people on board, right? I guess one time he spoke about AFC. We don't need the AFC and these people. I mean, if you listen to what you were saying, that we need the AFC, we need all the opposition on board to defeat this government, right? And, I don't think he knows it all. And sometimes he should take a step back and listen to what's going on, right? Because had he had listened, I don't think he would have gone and made such a statement about Flash Garden. So you need to listen sometimes and don't feel that he knows it all. That's my contribution. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your call. Call it live. Good morning.
Morning, sir. The lady said something just now that is very profound. A little profit is better than a 9 to 5. We as black people, we were socializing to get in go to school, go to university, get a good job, work for good benefits, get a good pension, and retire. We were never taught to be entrepreneurial. I can remember myself, I can talk from personal experience. When I think I've said this story here before, when I quit Guy School, because they sent me to Port Branch Training School to study there, right? And I had my timeline. I said I'm going to give them back the 2 years, because it was 2 years in school, 2 years on factory. I'm going to give them back the 2 years. I gave them 3 years, and then I'm going to start doing my own thing until I turn contractor for them, with them. When I quit, the day when I quit, I think my mother's blood pressure rised and stayed high for about a whole month, because I started quitting and I started my own business under this house, starting to repair refrigerators. And at a pretty young age, I was able to get my electrical contractor license. Right? Good. And she was furious. She was like, you're going to leave a good pension job. Look, the people about to promote you. Blah, 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 blah. Right? And I was like, nope. My dad said, go ahead. Right? Because we were never socialized into this. And if we look around, and I can remember my grandparents, right? They used to be selling guineas wherever in the yard they sell. And that is what they used to upkeep the house with, etc., because they were entrepreneurial. And our people have to start learning to socialize our kids into that. And I'm going to give you one more thing. The other night, they had Beyonce concert here at Hard Rock Stadium. I went home. When I went home, I saw a bunch. It's over 100 and something pair of rubber slippers. I'm like, what's going on here? My big daughter walked out smiling. He said, I'm about to go sell rubber slippers. I said, sell rubber slippers where? She's like, I'm going to the Beyonce concert to sell rubber slippers. I said, how come? She turned to me and said, I saw something on TikTok. When these girls go with the high heel shoes, right, they want to dress like Beyonce, but when they go with the high heel shoes, they got to leave barefooted or dance in the stadium barefooted. So she said, I'm going there to sell rubber slippers. She came back, zero. Every single thing was sold. She said, I'm sorry I didn't pick up 100 more pairs. And I'm like, go for it. Entrepreneuring is a certain pedigree of people that you see opportunity, and when you see the opportunity, you take advantage of it. When you fall out from that, you use that as, people will say you fail. No, you use that as a learning. It's a piece of learning. So people, look for the pedigrees in your family, see who got that way to do them kind of things and take the chances and go out and hustle and turn a hustle into a business and turn a business into a whole investment. Look for them. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. I like that nugget there about the lady recognizing the opportunity with the rubber slippers. Right? Yeah. You have to always be on the lookout for opportunities, man. That's how you get there. Call only line. I'm trying to get your volume up. Your call dancing all over this phone. I don't know where's the problem. Call in there. I can't find your call. I'm not talking to somebody. Huh? Yeah, but I have to get the volume up in order to get what magic is this? Connor. No, it's too low. Call me back, please. Just hang up and call back so I can get a proper get a call properly. Good. Sorry about that. Call just disappear. I know where it gone. Call it live. Thank you.
Morning. All right.
Call it here. Call it live. Good morning.
All right, morning, Kadaki. I don't want to keep you long. I want to make another contribution to your suggestions. Yeah, I don't want to keep you long. I just want to say to you, make another contribution to your topic of accumulating wealth and keep making savings. Very simple one. If we can get the young people to understand that every tin cup in the yard with a little bit of sun could help them to save, is a good thing. You know, a bora plant could grow in a 5-pound butter tin, and it can save you plenty money when the week come. A tomato plant can grow in a butter tin or even a 1-gallon plastic bottle. You cut off the top, you put it inside, you put a seed, and you'll be surprised if you count all them items up. After a couple of mornings, is a whole lot of saving and help in the house with nutrition. So I think we need to push that too. Everybody could remember the days when they saw Bornum riding horse all over the place and giving seeds. Very important thing. Too much spaces are all over the place. You walk, I live in a place named Old Karakara. A set of young men running all over this place, smoking weed. And if each one of them put 1 5-gallon can or a 5-pound can and put a seed, the family gonna get a lot of food. And I think we need to push that to return to the days when we plant a seed. Thank you, buddy. Thanks.
Thank you. I certainly agree with this scholar. I think I've shared my experience again planting. I used to plant in the front yard of UC Guyana, brother UC. While I was a part-time teacher at the Annandale Secondary School. What I earned from that kitchen garden was multiples times what I earned from my part-time teaching job on a monthly basis. And I had the luxury of getting up every morning and eating what I felt like eating. You know, we like to talk about Chinese stew or mix-up stew, whatever. Douglas. Yes, a Douglas stew. I used to get a luxury of steaming okra and callaloo and bora and so on in the mornings or whenever I felt like. And I knew what I was eating. So it's important that we also stick with the land. Use our little spaces and cultivate. Now there are different ways of farming. You got hydroponics. And you have what would I call it? There's a hybrid. I don't remember the exact name, but you have a hybrid where you have aquaculture and hydroponics together. Right? Call it live. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. Nice topic about this entrepreneurship. I could remember years ago I had a big friend, a father figure friend. And one year he said, Rhonda, are you going to get meat for Christmas? I said, well, buying it. So he said, I'm going to give you 6 chickens. The man came, he helped me, we made the pen and I put in these meatballs. At the same time I was doing work on the house. And I ain't get a chicken nail. I sold every one of those chickens. And from them 6 chickens, I started to rear chickens, moving from 6 to about, the last time I had about 50. But during the course, I lose got time I had to come meet out to set. The last time I bought chicken, I don't know, I bought some feed, and the feed is killing them out. But all in all, when you rear it, you do make money. Next thing. I left my job because certain things are looking to happen at the workplace. I wasn't afraid. I didn't like it. And when I opened my mouth to talk and all kind of stupidness, people carry news to the matron. I said before then a thought come up I could kill people. I said no, a nurse mustn't kill, a nurse must maintain life. And soon as it crept up in me, I said, Rhonda, nursing is no longer for you. Because you done get the spirit to tell you kill, and I don't want to be a murderer. I left the job. Anyway, when I left the job now, I had to find employment. And I started to gather old clothes and taking it to the estate. People would laugh me. I made a slogan, today rags, tomorrow. Today your rags, tomorrow my money. And I started a business. And let me tell you something, Kadaki. It is good when you can be an entrepreneur. Whatever you put in, whatever you decide to do, you got to see it as making profit. And when you're an entrepreneur, you have to got a sense of management. You got to tell yourself, if you don't work today, you can't eat today. You don't work tomorrow, you can't eat tomorrow. And it conditions your mind that you got to eat, you got to do everything. And when you look at many success stories, you see people will take nothing and make it into something. And I say, if I had the opportunity of probably living abroad, the amount of things I see that is being dumped in the waste, I know I would have been richer than Trump, because I would have gone about gathering everything and thing. But in Guyana, you don't have places where the type of entrepreneurship, like you pick up empty beer cans. That is a business outside. But here now, those things will throw around the place and little. And then it comes to the Africans gravitating to like white collar jobs, like being servants. We can remember we were here as slaves. We were enslaved in the West. We work in the West. When we came off the plantations, we started to do our gardening, rearing of our animals, and we were flooded out. Look what happened in Moko to those people doing the entrepreneurship. So with those things in the back of many African minds, they decide, you know what? Let me look for a job where I know when I put on my clothes and I go out there, I will be paid for my services. So things like that has removed Africans from this entrepreneurship, because they tell themselves that doing it on their own, look what we get. And things got a way of transgressing, passing down. We may say, no, that them pass down, but in our genes tells us. So you will see few people, and then most people now, they gravitate, they run away from the farms, run away from the rearings, while the other races adapt to that, and they don't ever want to pull back themselves into the area of doing things. Look, I just come out of the yard weeding. My nails black. I got to get it clean, because weeding after the grass does stain your nails. But what? I got to do it because I don't like to know. Every day I go to the shop and I buy in greens. And now this aquaponics or the hydroponics thing, it has me a bit baffled, because I would have liked to go into it, but I am studying the chemical content in this farming, because remember, you got to put chemicals. And if you're running away from putting chemicals into the ground to do your plants and going into aquaponics, to me, you're going into much more chemicals in your food, because you got to use chemicals. And for that, I would like, Kadaki, if you could get somebody one of these days to like come and explain it. And when they explain it, then other people, and sometimes I might gravitate to using the aquaponics. Please see how you could do that.
But the person to contact, I think, might be Dr. Simpson De Silva.
Oh.
I don't know if you all want him to bring all the secrets on Kams TV, but I can reach out to him. Good?
All right.
Thank you for your call. Yes, Vincent Jordan is here. He said he is greeting us from across the shore, beyond the shore. And he thinks we're having a good discourse this morning. Of course, Winston takes ownership of the STEP program. He was Minister of Finance, so there's no reason to doubt that he was the brainchild behind it. And his mother, you see, mothers have some serious influences on our lives. Don't you ever run away from that. The wisdom of the elders, they come to serve us even when we believe that we're in modern days. Right? 6225933 is the number to call. We have a minute or two to the program time. But if you give me reason, I might go a little later. John Thompson again. You know, I'll tell you this. I find it disrespectful. Not that I pay too much attention. Not that I pay, I think people need to show me a whole lot of disrespect. But I think I find it disrespectful, selfish. When as a participant of a program, you can't follow the rules. Especially if it is repeated to you several times. I will not allow you to double dip. If you want to share an additional concern, message, whatever, send it by message. WhatsApp the message. I will read it. If you don't understand that, too bad for you. Voice note.
My name is Amsterdam. I don't know how people save, but here how I start saving. If my brother send a money and give me, if somebody give me money and give me money, I used to stash it. I said, if they didn't give me the money, I still had to survive. So for me, that's how I start saving. Then another Indian boy teach me to save. There's years ago I used to do in my bureau. And he said, when you say you put up a money, don't take it out. If you got something to do, borrow somebody money and do what you got to do. And then you'll pay them back. But if you the money that you put up and you take it out, you don't put it back because you don't calculate it. It's yours. So for me, I just get my money stash and I borrow and then pay back later down. But the point I try to get at is people that give me money. Foreigners send money for me, my son send money, my brother send money, I just stash it and say if they didn't send the money, I still had to survive. And that's how I do me thing. That now I could get up and say go in and buy a car.
I hope they don't hold it against you and stop sending you a raise, or stop lending you money. Because you tell them your secret there. Good. But I quickly want to address what the sister said here just now. Now she could get up and say she's going and buy a car. What do you think about a car as an investment? Or motor vehicle in general as an investment? What are your thoughts on that? And what she was talking about borrowing people's money when she has her saved. I know the concept was OPM. It's one of the books I think I read years ago, or one of the concepts I read about. OPM, other people's money. You get rich by using other people's money. That's what the banks do. That's what a lot of the big business people do in Georgetown, Guyana, and around the world. They go to the banks and they borrow people money. Right? I remember reading recently of one of the multi-billionaires across the world explaining that similarly, he has never used his own money to buy anything. He has borrowed on his own money, but he has never used his own money to buy anything. And we have to develop that attitude because, like I usually say, we like to boast, I buy this cash. Let's say, for example, the car the sister is talking about, I buy this cash. One accident and I have no car nor cash. But if I had bought it on terms, one of the first thing the dealers insist is that you get full coverage insurance. So if it gets right off, it gets replaced. Good? But when you buy cash, it's at your own peril in most times. Those are just some nuggets. Nuggets. Somebody was telling me the other day about investing in minibuses and so on. And I asked the question, what's the price of minibus now? About $4 or $5 million? Will you give me, a stranger, $5 million to keep in cash? Of course, the answer is no. And so if you won't give me $5 million cash to keep, why will you buy a $5 million minibus and give me to keep? Or they like to say walk and keep. Risky business. I see them as risky investments. Motor vehicles and so on. If you're not driving it yourself, you're taking a chance. Right? If when you're driving it yourself, you're taking a chance if the conductor is not you. You're going to get robbed anyhow. Right? So those are things to consider. When you're about to make an investment, take time enough to research, speak with people who are in the industry before or who are in the industry so you will know the ups and downs and so you can make wise decisions. I think it's Audrey Brown who was saying, listen, she was responding to Rhonda. Yeah, when you mine poultry on a small scale, you make money. But as it gets larger, you start to suffer more losses. It's called economies of scale, right? You have to know the right number, that ideal number to work with. Otherwise, you're going to put yourself in some problems. The other advice is if you're doing pigs, do poultry. Or if you're doing poultry, do pigs. Why? Because it's something I recognize nowadays. People are feeding pigs with offals, animal waste. You plug the poultry and you throw the head and the guts, as we like to say. You accumulate it and you boil it up and you feed the pig. And that helps the pig to come at a fast rate in terms of development for size and meat and so on. But that same practice also creates an environmental problem. Almost in every area you can know where people are mining pigs. Because it always stinks. Because people are going to fish processing plants, they're collecting fish waste, they're collecting chicken waste, they're collecting maybe cow waste, animal waste, and they're cooking it up or storing it up and then feed it to the pigs. I guess there are lots of other implications that we can talk about there. Apart from environmental, there might very well be some serious health implications to talk about, but that's not the reason for this morning's program. But that was your sister saying, if you're mining poultry, then mine pigs. You will not lose anything. That's an integrated farm structure, where the waste of one thing becomes the input for another, and so you get profit all along the line, right? But that's that for now. It's 7 minutes past the 8 o'clock hour. Remember, tomorrow is Friday. There are two things I want to remind you about for tomorrow. Tomorrow we're doing the feeding program with the school as usual. I'm going to restart that tomorrow. So it's the first Friday for the term. And so I'm going to be serving up to the children. Also, we're doing Creole Friday. We are doing Metem tomorrow. So you can pre-order your Metem. Send me a WhatsApp and order your Metem. There's an offer. Spend $3,000 or more and we will deliver to Georgetown for $1,000. Spend $3,000 and more and we will deliver to Georgetown for $1,000. In Buxton, spend $2,000 and more and we will deliver for free. Right, so there you have it. Spend $2,000 and more in Buxton, you will get free delivery. And in Georgetown, spend $3,000 and more, you will get delivery for $1,000. Yes, pig waste or manure, whatever you call it, pig dung, right? Over the years have been used to produce biogas. We have had IAS, the Institute of Applied Science and Technology at the University of Guyana campus there. They have experimented with those things years, I think since the years of Forbes Burnham. And so yes, I know that the plants here, their technologies that have been used to use pig dung and so on and so forth to produce biogas. So yes. And that's another thing, those of you who are into pig rearing, you can very well explore how it is you can produce biogas. If not on a commercial scale, definitely on a domestic scale. So you ain't gonna go buying gas anyhow to cook your food and things. Have a good day. Goodbye. Talk to you all tomorrow. So support the Creole Friday tomorrow. Call and order some Metem. You can also get some cook up too. And definitely we're going to be also treating the children over at the primary school. Have a good day. Goodbye.